Good morning, students. Today we are back to chapter 3, that is classification of elements and periodicity in properties. Let me recap all the important points which we have seen in the last session. We have seen about law of triads, where the elements are grouped into 3, was by the scientist Dobereiner. Then we saw of law of octaves by the scientist Newton, where he has grouped 8 elements into one group. Then comes the modern periodic law proposed by the scientist Mendeleev. According to Mendeleev's periodic law, the properties of the elements or the periodic functions of their atomic weight. Then mostly proposed to the modern periodic law. As per modern periodic law, the definition is the properties of the elements or the periodic function of their atomic number. Okay. Then we saw what are horizontal rows called. Horizontal rows are otherwise called as periods, and vertical columns are otherwise called as groups or columns. And the elements which have similar properties, they are grouped into one category that we have seen. And how your periodic table is classified into main blocks S, P, D, F. And about S block, we have seen group 1 alkali and group 2 alkaline earth metals. And under P block elements, that is group 13 to 18 elements along with S block elements are collectively called as representative elements. Then under SPD, in D, the elements in which d orbital is completely filled is called as d block elements. An important feature of d block elements is they form colored ions. Then under F block elements, what we saw, the elements in which F orbital is completely filled, they are grouped under the category F block elements. They are radioactive compounds that we have seen. Then we saw what is the physical trends, what are the physical definitions which is involved in that. In that, first definition was atomic radius. Atomic radius is defined as a probable distance between the center of the nucleus and the outermost shell of an electron. This is called as atomic radii. What is a trend in atomic radii? Your atomic radii decreases as we move from left to right in a period. Your atomic radii decreases as we move from left to right across the period. Why this happens? This happens because the nuclear charge increases and the attraction of nucleus with the outermost electron increases, so atomic size decreases. And what happens to atomic radii in groups or columns? As we move from top to bottom in a group or column, what happens to atomic radii? It is just the opposite. Your atomic radii increases as we move from top to bottom of a group. Okay, so we have seen about atomic radii in detail. We have seen about atomic radii clearly. Then what is ionic radius? That definition also we have seen. That is a probable distance between the center of the nucleus and the ion to which it has its influence on the ionic bond. Okay. Till that we have seen your ionic radii also follows the same trend as your atomic radii. Means what? It decreases as we move from left to right across a period, and it increases as we move from top to bottom of a group. Okay. Then third definition which we have seen will be ionization enthalpy. What is ionization enthalpy? Energy required to remove an electron from a gaseous atom in its ground state is called as ionization enthalpy. We saw about first ionization enthalpy, second ionization enthalpy, and third ionization enthalpy. Second ionization enthalpy should be higher than first, and third should be higher than second. So the trend follows like that. Then what else we saw? What is that next trend? We were seeing about the noble gas configuration. In that we saw about halogens and chalcogens. We saw about halogens and chalcogens. Now let us move to the third definition. Our third definition is nothing but shielding effect. What is our third definition? Our third definition is nothing but shielding effect. Okay. So I'll be sending you a tabular column of all these trends. We have seen there are 6 definitions in the important chapter. Like in that we have completed 3, that is ionic radius, atomic radii, and ionization enthalpy. What trend they follow as we move from left to right, and what trend they follow as we move from top to bottom in a group. That I'll be sending you as a tabular column. And then the fourth definition which we are going to see is nothing but shielding effect. What is this? This is shielding effect. See, I have a central nucleus, then I have a large number of electrons. We have different orbitals or we have different shells. Okay. Now, the positive charge which the outermost electron experience is less. Means what? The influence of your nucleus to the outermost electron is less. Why it is less? Because there are intervening electrons in between. Due to the presence of these intervening electrons, the positive charge occurred by the outermost electron is less, and this effect is called as shielding effect, which is otherwise called as screening effect. Okay. So let us look into the proper definition. You look into an multi-electron atoms, the electrons will be present in outermost shell. They will not experience full positive charge. Why they are not experiencing full positive charge? Because they are shielded or screened by the electrons which are present in between the outermost electron and the nucleus. And for example, say for example, p electrons will get shielded away by the s electron because p electron is away from the influence of nucleus, so it is not experiencing complete positive charge. See, since s is there, the amount of positive charge experienced by p is less because the intervening electron here is s. Similarly, for d electron, the amount of positive charge experienced by the d orbital will be less. Why? Because it is intervened by s orbital electron and the p orbital electron. This is called as shielding effect, otherwise called as screening effect. And see, this is a picture which is going to correlate our atomic radii and ionic radii. See, first one is the attraction of electron towards the nucleus. Electrons are negatively charged and nuclei positively charged. So there is a net attraction between the electrons and the nuclei. And what happens to the electrons? There is a net repulsion between electron-electron pair. Okay. So that's the 2 point. This picture is going to correlate the relationship between atomic radii and ionic radii. First part, you need to understand there is a net attraction between the nucleus and the outermost electron, and there is a net repulsion between the electron and electron pair. Now, see, the nuclear charge experienced by the valence electron will be less than the actual charge on the nucleus. This is because of the shielding effect or screening effect of the valence electron from the nucleus by the intervening core electrons. Whatever we have discussed, the same thing is related here. Now moving to the anomalies. Okay, these are some differences. Okay, they are not following the exact rule. They are a little bit different. So we are just grouped them under the topic anomalies. See, the 2s electron of lithium is shielded away. Why? This is a give reason type of question. The 2s electron of lithium is shielded away. Why? See, the 2s electron of the lithium is shielded away from the nucleus by the inner core of electrons. So, the valence electron experiences a net positive charge which is less than the actual charge of +3. In general, the shielding is effective when the orbitals in the inner shell is completely filled. This situation occurs in all alkali metal which have single outermost ns electron preceded by a noble gas electronic configuration. So, what is the give reason for 2s electron of lithium is shielded away? See, what did I told you? The outermost electron will be experiencing a less positive charge than the actual charge of the nuclei. Why? Because it is disturbed, because in between there are some electrons. You can imagine the situation like this. A mother has 5 children, okay? So she is giving her food, whatever food or snacks which she has, she starts distributing from the lower kid. So number 1, number 2, I am talking about the age, okay, from the lower kid. So the amount of snack or food which is going to reach the eldest kid, okay, say for example the 5th kid, is obviously less because she want to feed the lower kid more, okay, they won't be controlled. So she gives more, and then finally the amount which comes to the eldest kid is becoming less. Why? Because he is intervened by in between children. This is what the exact concept is. Say for example, the actual charge should be +3. The net positive charge should be +3, but the amount of charge which the valence electron of lithium which is experiencing is less than +3. Why? Because it is intervened by the intervening electrons, by the in-between electrons which is present between the nucleus and the outermost electron. So, and this situation, this shielding effect is predominant in case of alkali metal, because alkali metal have single outermost ns electron, and that is preceded by means of noble gas configuration. We have already discussed enough about noble gas configuration. We told about the octet configuration and how they become unreactive because they are completely filled with its own electron. Next, now I am moving from lithium to fluorine across the second period. So what I am doing, I am moving from lithium to fluorine across the second period. Here what happens, the electrons will be added to the orbital in the same principal quantum level, and the shielding of the nuclear charge by the inner core of the electron does not increase very much in order to compensate or increase attraction of electron to the nucleus. So across a period, increasing nuclear charge outweighs the shielding. So when I move from left to right across a period, this increasing the nuclear charge, if I increase the nuclear charge, then I can overcome shielding. Okay, so increasing the nuclear charge outweighs the shielding. Consequently, the outermost electrons are held more and more tightly, so ionization enthalpy increases across a period. Okay, this is the reason why your ionization enthalpy is increasing across the period when nuclear charge increases. Okay, this point we have discussed under ionization enthalpy. When nuclear charge increases, ionization enthalpy increases. Why? Because when I increase the nuclear charge, then shielding effect is overcome. As a result, the electrons are held more and more tightly. As a result, ionization enthalpy increases across a period. Now, I'm going to talk about the groups. As we move down the group, that is, I am moving from top to bottom of a group. Here, the outermost electron is farther from the nucleus. The distance between the outermost electron and the nucleus is very far. So, there is an increased shielding of the nuclear charge by the electrons present in the inner level. So, all these inner core of electrons, what they do, they impose increased shielding to the electrons present in the outermost shell. So, in this case, increasing the shielding is overcoming the increased nuclear charge. So, the removal of outermost electron requires less energy down the group. So, this they are talking about ionization enthalpy. So, the amount of energy required to remove an electron is less when I move down a group. Why this happens? This happens because when I increase shielding, this increased shielding is able to overcome the increased nuclear charge. So when I remove an outermost electron, it requires less energy. Actually, these two statements are contrary. Like as we move from left to right across a period, and as we move from top to down across top to down of a group. Here I told you, when I increase nuclear charge, the increased nuclear charge is able to overcome the screening effect. As a result, ionization enthalpy increases across a period. But here what I am telling you, the ionization enthalpy decreases as we move down a group. Why this happens? Because when increase in shielding is able to overcome the increased nuclear charge. As a result, removing an electron from a gaseous atom in the ground state requires less energy, means ionization enthalpy is less. Now, this is a important give reason question. We can remove 2p electron of a boron very easily than the 2s electron of beryllium. Okay, I am repeating the statement. It's easy to remove the 2p orbitals electron from boron easily than the 2s electron of the beryllium. Okay, let us understand the concept. See, the first ionization enthalpy of boron is less than beryllium, though your boron has greater nuclear charge. Okay, why it is easy to remove 2p electron from boron than from beryllium? Because the first ionization enthalpy of boron is less than beryllium. So, when you consider the principal quantum number, S electron is attracted towards a nucleus more than a p electron. Yeah, this is a fact which we have seen. S is very close to the nucleus, so it is attracted more towards the nucleus. When you compare P and D, P is attracted towards the nucleus more than D. And when I give a comparison between D and F, D is attracted towards the nucleus than F. So it goes like that. In beryllium, the electron removed during ionization is an S electron, while the electron removed during ionization of boron is a P electron. Okay. So in beryllium, which electron I am going to remove? S electron during ionization. And in boron, which is the electron going to be removed? That is a P electron. So the penetration of 2s electron to the nucleus is more than that of 2p. Hence 2p electron of boron is more shielded than the nucleus by the inner core of electron than the 2s electron of the beryllium. Actually, this is the exact answer. So this is due to the screening effect. Your P experiences more shielding than S because your P has an inner core, that is S. It is being shielded by S electron. So the shielding effect is of P is more when you compare S. That's the reason it is more easy to remove an electron, that is especially from P electron from a boron is easy than to remove 2s from beryllium, because 2s is very close to the nucleus and it is attracted towards the nucleus more readily. While on the other hand, your P's experience of shielding effect is more. Why? Because it has got an intervening S. That's the reason. Next, first ionization enthalpy of oxygen is less than nitrogen. We have already seen about first ionization enthalpy. I have already told you second ionization enthalpy is greater than first. Third ionization enthalpy is greater than second. So here the question is, first ionization enthalpy of oxygen is less than the nitrogen. Why? See, smaller the first ionization enthalpy of oxygen compared to that of nitrogen. Why? Because in nitrogen atom, the 2p electrons reside in different atomic orbitals as per Hund's rule. But in case of oxygen, out of 4 2p, the 2 is going to occupy the same 2p orbital. As a result, there is an increased electron-electron repulsion. So it is easy to remove the fourth 2p from an oxygen than to remove one of the 3 2p electrons from the nitrogen. Okay, so this is as per the Hund's rule. See, each orbital should have at least one electron each. I think this concept of nitrogen we have already discussed about Hund's rule. Instead of filling two electrons in the same orbital, we always choose to prefer 1 1, like each one gets 1, like that. So here I am telling you the first ionization enthalpy of oxygen is less compared to nitrogen. Why? Because when you look into nitrogen atom, we have already seen sp. P we have 3, px, py, pz. So the 3 electrons of 2p orbital will be placed in different atomic orbitals. But in case of oxygen, what happens? We have 4 2p. Correct? We have 4 2p. You need to imagine the atomic weight of this, right? We have 4 2p. In 4 2p, 2 is placed in same 2p. As a result, there is more electron-electron repulsion. But in case of oxygen, the removal of 4th electron from 2p is easy than to remove one of the 3 from 2p electrons from nitrogen. Okay, you need to work out this. Write the electronic configuration of nitrogen and oxygen. Try to fill it up in s orbital and p orbital. Fill in the case px, py, pz and just see. So it is always easy to remove the last electron from oxygen easier than from nitrogen. Okay, this is as per our Hund's rule. Yeah, these are give reason in text question. Why our lanthanides and actinides are placed separately at the bottom of the periodic table? For the sake of convenience, and there will be a systematic study because we are seeing group 1 alkali, group 2 alkaline earth metal. Then we saw about boron family, carbon family. So for the sake of convenience and systematic study of elements which are having similar properties. In the beginning only we have discussed that elements having similar properties are placed in a same kind of group. Now, not only this reason, but in order to maintain the structure of the periodic table, by keeping the elements with the similar properties in a similar way. Actually, lanthanides and actinides, their properties is similar to each other, but they are completely different from other group elements. That's also a reason why lanthanides and actinides are kept separately down the group. Now, elements like zinc, PET, that is cadmium, these are not considered as transition elements. Why? Because they have incompletely filled d orbital. See, generally we call transition elements as elements whose d orbital is completely filled, but these three are exception. Why? Because they have incompletely filled d orbitals. And when you look into the chemistry of actinoids, even while discussing the remembering of periodic table, we didn't touch much about actinoids. It is complicated. That's the reason, because they involve large number of oxidation state. Like, in when they are in a state of oxidized and when they are in reduced state, they exhibit different kinds of oxidation state. That's the reason why we are not dealing much with actinides. Yeah. Electron gain enthalpy can be literally opposite to ionization enthalpy. What is ionization enthalpy? Energy required to remove an electron from a gaseous atom in the ground state. And what is electron gain enthalpy? The process of gaining of electron by an atom. Okay, electron gain enthalpy. When an electron is added to neutral gas atom, so I am converting electron to a negative ion. Whatever enthalpy change accompanying this process is called as electron gain enthalpy. Now I am a gaseous atom, say for example X. If I am going to acquire one electron, I have acquired one negative charge. Okay, so I have got one negative charge extra. So now instead of being a neutral atom, I have been converted to a negative ion. So whatever enthalpy change accompanying during this process is called as electron gain enthalpy. Okay, I will repeat once again. See, process of converting a neutral atom to negative ion by gaining an electron, and enthalpy change accompanied in this process is called as electron gain enthalpy. And entropy is nothing but absorbing heat energy from the surrounding, so surrounding becomes cool. And what is enthalpy? Liberation of heat to the surrounding such that the surroundings temperature is increased. This is enthalpy. Now this is a reaction. I am a neutral atom X. It is going to gain an electron, so it becomes X minus. So depending on the type of element, the process can be endothermic or the process can be exothermic. Just now I explained about endo and exothermic. Now added to the atom and the electron gain enthalpy is negative. For example, you take group 17 elements, they are halogens. They are very high negative electron gain enthalpies because they can attain noble gas configuration by picking up an electron. Okay. So which elements have high electron EGP, EGE? Which elements have high EGE, that is electron gain enthalpy? That is the group 17 elements, the halogens, they are very high electron gain enthalpy elements. Why? Because if they give them only one electron, they attain noble gas configuration. Okay. Now we need to see the contrary. Which elements have high electron gain enthalpies? I mean large positive electron gain enthalpy. We were discussing halogens under elements having large negative EGE, and large positive EGE will be your noble gases, because the electron has to enter the next high principal quantum number, leading to an unstable electronic configuration. They are already stable. I have told them as inborn genius. So they are already in the octet configuration. So when I am going to add one more electron, they become unstable configuration. So it should be noted that electron gain enthalpies have large negative values towards the upper right of the periodic table and preceding the noble gases. Okay. Now we'll just move to the general rule. See, as a general rule, the electron gain enthalpy will be negative when atomic number increases across a period. Okay, so what is the case? EGE should be negative. When it should be negative? When nuclear charge increases. And see, as a general rule, EGE should be negative when there is an increase in the atomic number across the period. Now, the nuclear charge increases from left to right across a period, and it is easy to add an electron to smaller atom since the added electron on an average would be close to the positively charged nucleus. We should expect the EGE to become negative as we move down the group because the size of the atom increases and the added electron will be farther from the nucleus. So we have seen the two cases. What happens to EGE when you move across a period? When I move across a period, the nuclear charge increases from left to right, so it's easy to add an electron to a smaller atom. But contrary, what happened? EGE will be less negative, or otherwise it becomes more positive. Okay, in both the cases it's same, whether it is less negative or more positive. When it happens as we move down the group, why? Because the size increases and the electron which I have added to make it stable, it is far from the nucleus. And what is electronegativity? Ability of an atom in a compound to attract the shared pair of electron towards itself is called as electronegativity. Electronegativity can be literally termed in terms of for remembrance, I can tell electronegative compounds are very, very selfish compounds. Why? Because see, there are two atoms and they are sharing an electrons, and my tendency, say for example I am A and my next friend is B, we are sharing electrons, and the tendency of myself to attract both the shared pair of electrons towards myself is electronegativity. Okay, I am repeating, this is a qualitative measure. Ability of an atom in a chemical compound to attract the shared electrons towards itself is called as electronegativity. Correct, no? Say for example NH3, N and H3 together combine to form a compound, and now ability of the nitrogen to retain the shared pair. When they are shared, it should be shared between N and H, but when nitrogen want to take hold of all the shared pair of electron towards it, then this is electronegativity. Now, who is having highest electronegativity? Our fluorine has highest electronegativity with a value of 4. So which is the higher? This is a very, very repeated question. So highest electronegative element will be F, that is fluorine. Now moving to non-metallic elements, your non-metallic elements have a strong tendency to gain electrons. So just imagine the opposite. Then the metals have less tendency to gain electrons. So electronegativity can be directly related to non-metallic properties of the elements. Say for example a non-metal, it has more tendency to gain the electron. So what is that? So gaining of electron, so that is called as your in the previous slide, see, till now we have seen about atomic radii, ionic radii, ionization enthalpy, and opposite of ionization enthalpy is electron gain enthalpy and electron negativity. So this slide is going to relate the metallic and non-metallic character of elements. See, since non-metallic elements have the strong tendency to gain electrons, here electronegativity is directly related to non-metallic character. Or I can further extend this statement as electronegativity is inversely related to metallic property of the elements. Both are at the same. Metallic character is inversely proportional to electronegativity. Non-metallic character is directly proportional to electronegativity. See, when I increase electronegativity, increase in electronegativity across a period is accompanied by increase in non-metallic properties of elements. Correct, no? So what happens to electronegativity? It increases across a period, especially with non-metallic elements. So you tell me the contrary statement. So what happens to decrease in electronegativity? Decrease in electronegativity will be accompanied whenever there is an increase in the metallic property. Okay, so we need to remember only one thing. Non-metallic character is directly related to electronegativity. Then you can write the opposite statement by yourself. See, decrease in electronegativity down a group is accompanied by decrease in non-metallic property, or I can change this statement as increase in metallic property of elements. So both are same. Moving to oxidation state. Okay, now see, the term oxidation state is otherwise referred as valency. Okay, the term oxidation state can be otherwise dealt in the term valency. See, oxidation state means, say for example, I have a coordination compound, say for example carbon bonded to F3 or fluorine F6 bonded to sulfur. So they are big coordination compound, they are complex compound. Now the charge occurred by the central atom in a coordination compound Whenever the atom has gained or when it has donated an electron, the final charge which the coordination compound is acquiring is said to be oxidation state. Okay, so the valence is equal to number of electrons present in the outermost shell. The term oxidation state can be interchangeably used as valency. For example, fluorine has an oxidation state of -1. So what is the oxidation state of fluorine? It is -1. Means what? It has gained one electron, so it has acquired -1 charge. But you know, in compounds, in coordination compounds like OF2, it exhibits +2 oxidation state. So oxidation state determines the oxidation number of the element. Okay. So what is oxidation state? The charge carried by an atom when it acquires or donates an electron. Okay. So next definition will be chemical reactivity. This is also a very important question. See, the diagonal relationship refers between certain pairs of diagonally adjacent elements in the second and the third period. Now, what is diagonal relationship and who exhibits diagonal relationship? Now, diagonal relationship is a relationship where two adjacent, they are nearby, they are neighbors. Say for example, second and the third period elements exhibit diagonal relationship. This characteristic property is shown by S and P block elements respectively. Say for example, lithium shows diagonal relationship with magnesium, beryllium shows diagonal relationship with aluminium, and your boron shows diagonal relationship with the silicon. Their properties are diagonally similar, so this relationship is called as diagonal relationship. So diagonal relationship will be exhibited by the elements present in the second period and in the third period respectively, especially between S and P block elements. And can you, if they have asked you, give some examples of elements which show diagonal behavior, then lithium and beryllium, then what is that? Beryllium and aluminium, lithium and magnesium, okay, LM, lithium and magnesium, beryllium and aluminium, boron and silicon. They exhibit diagonal relationship. Now, the anomalous behavior is attributed due to small size, large charge radius ratio, C by R ratio, and high electronegativity of the elements. Why did they show diagonal relationship? Because they have some difference among other elements. What are they? First one, their size is very small. Number two, their CR ratio is very large. That is, charge by radius ratio is very large, and they have high electronegativity. Apart from this two, the first member of group has only 4 valence orbital, especially a 2s and 2p, which is available for bonding, while the second member have 9 valence electron, s, p, d. In p you have 3. Just count. There are 9 valence electron in the second member of the group. So what is the reason for specific elements to exhibit diagonal relationship? They are extremely small in size, their C by R ratio is very large, and they have high electronegativity. Apart from that, you know, the first member has only 4 valence orbital, and see px, py, pz, and this is 1. So 3 plus 1, 4. And when you look into the second member, they have 9 valence electron. That is, this one is 3, 3 plus 1, 4, and this is 5. In d orbital, we have 5, 5 plus 4, 9. And because of this consequence, when we look into the covalency of the first member of the group, say for example boron can always form a coordination bond or covalent bond with 4 fluorine atoms, that is BF4 minus, while other members can expand their valence shell, so they will be accommodating more than 4 pairs of electrons. Say for example aluminium is able to form a covalent bond with F6. So this is the consequence of the diagonal relationship. See, the maximum covalency of first group is always 4. They can always bond with 4 different atoms only. Say for example, boron can bond only with 4 fluorine atom. But when we look into the other members, they can expand their valence shell so that they will be accommodating more than 4 pairs. See, they have accepted even 6 fluorine atoms here. Now, when you look into the first member of the p block elements, they have the greater ability to form pi multiple bonds to itself. Say for regarding your pi and sigma bonds, we'll be discussing in the fourth chapter, chemical bonding. So till now you just imagine a pi bond. A pi bond is a multiple bond to which they can bond to itself. If it comes to carbon, I'll be calling that property as catenation, that is forming a more chains among itself, C, many C's. Okay. Similarly, you know, these are the set of compounds which can form pi multiple bond to itself. Say for example, carbon double bond C, carbon triple bond C, nitrogen double bond and nitrogen triple bond. When you look into second pair elements like C, here C can form a bond with oxygen, can form a bond with nitrogen. This is the reverse when compared to the subsequent members of the same group. So we have seen what is the consequence of diagonal relationship, why diagonal relationship happens. Now this is about the metallic character and non-metallic character. I think I have an acronym here. This is the important acronym. We know about the degree, master degree MBA, okay, Master of Business Administration. You just think here as MBO, okay, metals always form basic oxides. So in this chapter we have seen about HP, then we have seen what is Verghese. I remembered BL, that is the diagonal relationship. I have remembered very literally. You can follow some other rule. And the third important acronym will be MBO. Metals always form basic oxides. See, if I say metal form basic oxides, then what happens to non-metals? Just tell the opposite. Non-metals form acidic oxides. Okay. See, non-metals form acidic oxides. This is the important acronym. See, remembering in the form of acronym will help you to remember the concept for a long time. Say for example, if I tell the term bar, means what? Blue litmus paper turns to red in acidic solution. BAR. Blue litmus paper turns to red in acidic solution. So you will not be forgetting this ever. So try to remember the complicated concepts using acronyms. Okay. Now what is the important thing which I told you? Important acronym MBO. Metals form basic oxides while non-metals form acidic oxides. This is the important aspect. Now what happens to the metallic character? Metallic character decreases as we move from right to left, whereas metallic character increases from left to right. Okay. This is due to addition of electrons in various orbitals. Electron which combine on the two extremes of the periodic table form oxides like peroxides and superoxide. You know about hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. And superoxide, I'll be giving you an example. Some are acidic, some are basic and some are neutral. They are the one which has both acidic character and basic character, they are called as amphoteric character. Okay, what are amphoteric compounds? Which show both acidic and the basic character. Now, metals form basic oxides while non-metal form acidic oxides. When you look into the transition elements, that is 3D group elements, the change in the atomic radii is smaller than the representative elements. What are representative elements? Elements between 13 to 18 along with S block elements are collectively called as representative elements. In representative elements, change in atomic radius is less when you compare to that of representative element. That is, your 3D elements exhibit atomic radius smaller than the representative element across the period. Why this change in atomic radii is still more smaller when you move into 4s? Okay, you can grade this. See, 3D change in atomic radii is smaller than representative. While if you move into inner transition element, it is still more smaller. Why? Because ionization enthalpy will be intermediate between P, S and P. Because already when we discussed about transition element, they are showing a transition between S and P block elements. Their transition is in between metal and non-metals. As a consequence, they are less electropositive than group 1 and group 2 metals. So we have seen the trends in physical property. We have seen about atomic radii, ionic radii, ionization enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy and electronegativity. I'll be sending you in a format such that what happens to all these parameters when we move from left to right, and what happens to all these parameters when we move from top to bottom in a group. That I'll be sending you. So I have discussed about the important questions while we were moving down. We have discussed some give reason questions too. So apart from that, I'll be giving you one more quick recap of how to remember the periodic table. That is, till which element you are supposed to fill S, till which element you have to fill P, till which element where D will be involved, where F will be involved. So these two I'll be sending you in the online notes. Thank you, children.